Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Riverdale, primary colors. Jason, Grace, Alonso. Okay, I was kind of shitting on the show last week for having gone, I thought, off the rails.
We all were.
Getting it back this week, with the notable exception of please no more Andy Cohen. Please, no more Andy Cohen.
I thought about you this morning in the wee hours of the morning when I was watching Riverdale, because that's when I have to watch it, and I thought Alonso's probably like clawing his eyes out that Andy Cohen shows up in the living room with, you know, like recessed lighting and just mood lighting and a fireplace and just like, hi, I'm Andy Cohen. I love Riverdale so bad, so bad.
But whether you loved that appearance or you hated that appearance, I think it's safe to say that that will be the final appearance of Andy Cohen. I can't imagine, given that he's playing himself, he's going to be a reoccurring role.
Oh, please.
Andy Cohen would have been, it would have been amazing if Andy would have had lines that were not Andy Cohen-ish. If he would have been a villain or would have done something like Naomi Campbell's been doing on Empire.
If he had showed up like drinking beer out of a can and wearing a tank top.
Yeah, that actually would, if he had been
doing
like a Southside Serpent sort of person, that would have been really
That would have been fun. Anyway, but thankfully that's over quickly, and then we get on to the actual show, which is, you know, they're all these elements that didn't seem like they were going to work are now interesting again.
Right.
Like the chick stuff is now interesting again.
Hal, Maury Povich show. You are not the father of Chick. And then they glaze over that, and Alice is just like, look, he's not the father. Are we cool? Great.
Let's never talk about this again.
Hal was the father? I thought that was sort of a foregone conclusion because why wouldn't they have just raised him like their other two daughters?
Right.
Like there was obviously a secret surrounding him, and I kind of assumed that it was going to be who the father was. They didn't make it clear, and Hal certainly didn't like having him around.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not shocked. I didn't really maybe give it that much thought, but yeah, it does all scan, certainly. But the idea that now Chick has got Kevin on his side and that he's super gaslighting Betty, which is lots of fun. And then now you've got all the other things coalescing into the mayor's race and the school president race, which I find like, okay, this is how you take a million plot lines and boil them down into things we can actually kind of keep up with.
I think that was a really good way of condensing all the exploding plot lines that we were sort of very frustrated with, where you can, it's like a win or lose stakes right now.
Yeah.
And what will you do to win and what will you do to lose? And I feel like that makes it sound like Riverdale viewers are stupid and we need everything to be really laid out clearly for us. But there was so much to keep track of.
Dramatically, it felt like they were just shooting off in a million directions. And yes, now obviously they've managed to coalesce it. I don't take back anything from last week. I think it was still a hot mess last week, but you know, it got us here, which is a good thing.
It's a lukewarm mess this week.
I think they're getting their mojo back a little. Now, I'm conflicted about the whole Jughead hunger strike / chaining to themselves to the school thing for two reasons.
Which are?
Well, one, again, you know, just because you can't publish your article in the local paper or the school paper, there's an internet.
Right.
You know, like who is even reading the paper anymore? Like he would totally have a blog. You would totally start a stophiramlodge.com or whatever, and just publish the stuff that he wanted to publish. He didn't necessarily have to do this kind of thing to get attention. And the second thing is that real life is way outstripping this show in terms of student protest. So it's sort of just to look at this like 6 people chained to a high school in light of like the nationwide walkouts and the march this weekend. It's kind of like, well, it's not Riverdale's fault. They wrote and directed this months ago, but it's like, oh man, y'all are getting left in the dust.
You would think that they would, that's a great point, Alonso. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Jughead only go to Southside for like a week?
Yeah, 4 days, as somebody puts it in this episode.
Yeah, because you have this moment where he's talking to FP and he's saying like, this is where my friends went to school, and imagine like, because FP is sort of trying to temper Jughead's frustrations, and he's saying, listen, like maybe we'll be able to get in one of these penthouses and they build things up, and we'll be able to overlook all of Riverdale. And then Jughead says, and all will look at this prison where I have all these memories with my friends. I'm like, dude, you didn't like it until 2 episodes into your arc there.
Right. No, Archie says to him, you went there for 4 days, but then he's like, yeah, but I grew up on the South Side. Like, those are my people. I think he always sort of felt like something of an interloper in Riverdale because he was not one of the Richies, you know?
Yeah.
So I get his connection to the neighborhood more than to the school, but the school now becomes the sort of metaphor for the entire South Side, obviously.
Veronica's as a villain this episode, which was I enjoyed seeing because Ronnie's always she walks that line of I'm untouchable, but I am in.
But I have a soul.
Right. And seeing Ethel, who is the MVP of this episode.
More Ethel.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ethel just whipped it out and slapped everyone across the face.
Bringing back the Glee slushy thing.
Because I was wondering, where would she find, and like Betty says, I give her props for
bringing it all the way from Pops.
A shake that's like perfectly coiffed with the cherry and the whipped cream and splash. That was great. That was great. But and the flyer too.
Right. I freeze framed on that flyer. That was great.
And Josie being complicit.
Ooh, yeah.
Great, great. See, that's what Riverdale needed to give me. That kind of drama, it was worth waking up at 5 a.m. for because you didn't expect that.
If they'd given Josie the punchline of, oh, and fuck Andy Cohen, that would have really brought it home for me, but I'll let that go.
I think sort of what we're seeing is basically like people in Riverdale who are on the side of the man, and that's being propped up by the Lodge family, and people in Riverdale who are on the side of what Riverdale used to be, I guess ostensibly as far as we can believe, before the murder of Jason Blossom. And you feel like Jughead is on the side of that, and Betty then defects from the side of Veronica onto the side of Jughead, who will be opposing Veronica in this presidential race, mirroring how Fred Andrews will be opposing Hermione Lodge in the mayoral race.
Right.
So it's interesting to have those two parallels running concurrent to each other and seeing how how the kids are going to handle things and how the adults are going to handle things and why Molly Ringwald is kind of a part of it.
But Molly Ringwald, she is also an MVP because she was fantastic. You know, 16 Candles was great.
That dinner table smackdown
was believable.
Yes.
That would actually go down in my household if I talked to. Well, my parents are so divorced, but if they were married, my mom would slap me around like that too.
The Andrews are divorced too.
But they had a good amicable breakup. Can we circle back around to the Coopers where the whole exchange in the kitchen where all of a sudden Alice finds Betty's black wig. Chick's like they're having sex and Alice is like, you're having sex? Are you? They try so hard. Alice Cooper tries so hard to be that mom that is so involved in her daughter's life and is shocked by all these things, but it's so bad. Of course her daughter's having sex with Jughead.
I kept thinking, oh God, are we gonna find out that Betty is FP's daughter? Like, no, that can't work because she's got the Blossom blood, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But because who knows on this show? Like they'll go there if they
and speaking of sex, great poignant moment with Cheryl and Tony Topaz.
I was going to say, sexual awakenings abound in this.
Abound.
At the slumber party.
They had a really sweet moment that I'm not sure about you guys, but I really, really related to. Which
Absolutely.
Is I feel like when you're growing up, sometimes you kind of realize where you were at in your sexuality at a benevolent, harmless sleepover.
Of course.
And you start realizing, like, maybe you feel differently towards this friend than your other friends, and what does that mean? And I thought that was a really authentic and raw moment when she sort of confessed that to Tony, saying, I wanted you, I just wanted you, but I didn't want it to,
But my mother would never let me.
Yeah, and also wonderful. I think part of that perhaps she's not maybe admitting to herself, or they might address later on, is if she only invited Tony, that might bring some suspicions from her friends as well. It's easy right now to pin it on her mother, but she's still figuring out her own sexuality.
This is true, yeah.
So I wonder if that's maybe not something she's ready to confront. If people are like, oh, you're spending a lot of time with, this out bisexual, that makes things complicated.
Grace, you're so right, because when my first gay relationship was just that. I was secretly seeing someone who was out openly, but I couldn't be out openly because of whatever I was doing at the time. And so we would have hangouts, we would have movie dates. So it was so masterfully done, only to be interrupted by a Rebecca De Mornay Hand the Rocks a Cradle moment where where Nana is now face up on the ground for being pushed, or who knows what happened. But I feel like Riverdale.
Tanis Root, Nice Rosemary's Baby, shout out.
They should have let that moment ride. I feel like it would have definitely been so much more powerful and really resonated with a lot of youth and a lot of young adults.
Did I miss the scene last week where Cheryl overhears her mother and Claudius conspiring to get rid of Nana and Cheryl?
Yeah.
Okay, because I saw that in the previous one. I'm like, I've never seen this scene before, but I guess I just missed it.
No, that was at the tail end, and so Cheryl has some pretty. She's very suspicious, basically, and she's very suspicious. She has reason to be, and then of course when you see Nana Rose, the whole thing doesn't really add up. And I am pretty apprehensive with now they're going down the arc of conversion therapy, and I'm interested to see how Riverdale treats that. I know it's kind of this latent fear that a lot of kids have with regards to coming out and how your family is going to treat that.
It usually takes place more in a religious campground, but everything on this show is so like overly art directed that of course it would be this like old school snake pit.
Right,
you know?
right.
If they, because there's a reality show that was on VH1 called Love and Hip Hop. I know you guys, where one of the storylines of the reality stars was that his mom sent him to gay conversion therapy as well. So I think that Riverdale has to really handle this with kid gloves because that's a serious issue. You can't. It's like if they
can't camp it up too much.
No, not at all. It's like if they had a storyline about rape, you have to do it justice. You have to do it right. And I think
they did have a storyline about rape.
No,
actually.
but no.
Now that I think about it,
like
no, I totally get
right?
it. Yes, I agree.
Again, I was not Team Cheryl. But now she's become my favorite character. She's surpassed Betty as my favorite character because I think Cheryl is now the depth and the familial. There's just so much more dark and just very, very negative things that a lot of us can relate to versus my dad's running for mayor.
Right, but I think the elections boil things down in a good way. I think now we have Betty and Cheryl's paranoia about things that are actually happening, also boiling things down in an interesting way. So yeah, I think this is a promising episode. I was worried about the jump from 13 in the first season to 22 in the second, but maybe this is going to land. Who knows? We'll see. All right. We'll find out next week. Hope you'll join us for that.